In this video, we're going to go ahead and deploy our Weather Web MVC app to our Run cluster. It was my initial plan to go ahead and do all of the builds for our web API and data. We did the web in the previous video, but I wanted to do the run just so that we can see more of an end-to-end and understand some of the things that were happening in build that I really couldn't explain then. So we're going to go ahead and run this file. Okay, it's in the TAP workloads folder, .NET run, and it's going to be the weather web script. Okay, so let's go ahead and scroll through this script here. So you'll see that what we're doing here is we're just doing some directory organization and stuff. We're creating a directory. If it doesn't exist, we're going to store all of our files for the run inside of the run folder. And then if the deliverable was already there, just go ahead and remove it, because in this line right here, we're going to extract that deliverable. If you'll recall, when we did the Tanzu Java web app demo, we had to go ahead and get the deliverable out of the config map Kubernetes resource. Okay, so once we go ahead and output that to this YAML file, we then need to go ahead and switch over to our run EKS cluster. Now, before we go ahead and apply that deliverable, you'll see this is where things get a little interesting. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get from Secrets Manager our Wavefront URL and the token for authentication. And we are going to store that. Okay, we're going to get rid of the Wavefront API secret if it already exists, and get rid of the file and so forth. And then we're just going to recreate it. So right here is where we're creating a Wavefront API secret. So you'll see here that we're going to make this a string data type. So these are the parameters that are going to create the files, if you saw the previous video, in our mounted volume. So it will be in this host file and token file, the actual values. Now, this is a resource claim, okay, as opposed to a class claim. If a service is not supported out of the box by the services toolkit or the Bitnami services and so on, that means that we have to go ahead and create the secrets manually. It is assumed that the service that we want to connect to and create a secret for already exists, okay? And that's exactly the situation here, okay? Our Wavefront service already exists. And so all we need to do is create the secret, as opposed to a class claim, which comes out of the box. You'll notice here that we're not having to create a Redis secret. Okay, so let's scroll down a little bit more here. So you'll see that we're going to go ahead and apply that secret. Now, this is where we have to give the services toolkit permission for read access to be able to view the secrets. So that's all that this is doing right here. We're creating a cluster role and give it the ability to get, list, and watch these secrets. So down here, okay, so here's where we're going to set up both the Redis service and our Wavefront service. Okay, and the Redis is going to be a class claim and the Wavefront a resource claim. So we go ahead and delete them if they already existed. And right here is where this makes my point that I made. So for the Redis class claim, all that is necessary for us is to specify the name of the class. And if we go over here, I'm just going to have to delete this for a moment. Let's go ahead and switch contexts to if we do a list, these are the services that are supported out of the box. Okay, these are coming, as you can see here. Okay, so these are the Bitnami services. And so here's our Redis unmanaged, and that just means that it's an unmanaged service. Okay, we're not using like a cloud provider or some other means of a managed service. we're actually going to go ahead and create a Redis instance right on the fly here. So that's the difference. One of the major differences between a class claim and a resource claim. As I mentioned, the resource claim, it's assumed that it already exists, okay? And the class claim is just saying, look, I want a Redis unmanaged service, and Bitnami is going to go ahead and take care of the rest and install that. And so you'll see also here that we have a Postgres unmanaged service, which we'll use later when we get to the data service. So that is one of the main differences, okay? So we'll go ahead and create, when we create the resource claim, you'll see that we have to go ahead and specify the secret itself, okay? And it'll be recognized by the name of the resource claim. So we'll delete that if it already existed, the deliverable. So now we're applying the deliverable, which is the main part of us getting a running application. Back over in the build for a second here, if I just go over here, I just don't think I mentioned this, but these lines right here are really just like the setting the definition. These lines don't really do anything, because when they create the work, when the build creates the workload, it's going to embed these things into the image so that the image knows, it will expect these secrets to be there when we get to by the time we get to the run. So the image is going to have these references. And so when we get to the run cluster, this is when we're actually creating them so that they'll actually be there. Okay, so I hope that kind of clears up a little of the confusion, if there was any. And so it's going to switch over to the TAP build. It extracted the deliverable from the config map. It's going to go ahead and create these. The only place where it gets a little slowed up there is for the Redis, I believe, because the Redis is spinning up an actual instance here from scratch. Okay, this is what TAP calls a dynamic service provisioning. Here we've got our URL. Now, if we come over to the browser that I was supposed to go to before we did all of this, you'll see here that I didn't have anything at this URL. But now if we go ahead and refresh, let's see, is that the right URL? That could be. I think that's the right one. Okay, there it goes. Was that the right URL? I guess not. Yeah, here it comes. It was the right URL. I'm just being a little impatient here, folks. Forgive me. So if we come over here and we will see, this is our weather web app. So this is our ASP.NET Web MVC application in our EKS cluster. Now, why are we getting this big error here? Well, because we have not set up our API yet. And so I wanted us to see this, okay? So the web app is running just fine. It's just that now it's throwing an error because it's unable to communicate with our backend API, because I think the home page comes up with information that comes from the weather API. In fact, if we go over here to the environment menu, everything is working just fine, okay? And what I'm doing here is just listing out all of my environment variables and bolding out the ones that are most important here. So the service binding root, if you'll remember when we looked at the code, this is where all of our secrets, and this goes back to, you know, when we build, this is what our image expects. This is where we expect to find secrets. It's only when we actually do the, you know, the script in the run that it actually goes ahead and creates that. So when the volume mount happens, those things will be there. And this is our weather API URL, which we have yet to build or deploy. So this is not going to load anything. That's just going to result in an error. Okay, so we've got business to do in going ahead and setting up our weather API so that this actually works. Okay, so we'll take care of that in the next video.